stranded in the ice world. The cold was brutal. It bit through Ethan Graves' survival suit like sharp knives, turning his fingers stiff and his breath into white clouds. The blizzard roared around him, making it hard to see more than a few feet ahead. His boots crunched through the thick ice, every step slower than the last. His ship was gone, destroyed on impact. He was the only survivor, stranded on this frozen wasteland. His HUD display blinked red. His suit's thermal system was failing fast. If he didn't find shelter soon, he would freeze to death. Ethan clenched his jaw and forced himself to move. He had spotted a structure in the distance before his ship went down. It was his only hope. But the storm had grown worse, and he could barely see his own hands. His body trembled. His heartbeat slowed. He knew the signs of hypothermia. Once he stopped shivering, it would be over. His body would shut down. Move. Keep moving. He forced his legs forward, but they felt heavy, like they weren't his own. Then, a dark shape appeared in the snow. It was tall, not human. Ethan blinked, trying to focus. His vision blurred, but he saw glowing blue eyes staring at him. A voice, deep and frustrated, spoke through the storm. "Shut it, human. You're frostbitten. Get in my bed before you die." Ethan stumbled forward, but his knees gave out. The last thing he felt was strong hands gripping his arms, dragging him toward the unknown. Warmth and fire. Ethan woke up wrapped in thick furs. Heat surrounded him, and for a moment, he thought he was dreaming. The sharp scent of burning wood filled his nose, mixed with something strange. His body was stiff, but he wasn't freezing anymore. He could move his fingers. Slowly, he opened his eyes. A fire crackled nearby, its golden light casting long shadows on icy walls. He was inside a cave-like shelter, but the walls looked reinforced, maybe an ancient bunker. Then he saw her. She sat across from him, watching him with cold, piercing blue eyes. She was tall, muscular, and covered in thick, dark fur. Her face was mostly humanoid, but her ears were pointed, and sharp fangs glinted in the firelight. She didn't look friendly. Ethan swallowed. His throat felt dry. "Where am I?" The alien woman snorted. "In my home. Be grateful, human." He pushed himself up slowly. His body ached all over. He remembered the crash, the storm, her dragging him inside. "You saved me?" he asked. She growled, annoyed. "No, I let you live." "Big difference." Ethan frowned. "Why?" "I thought your kind hated humans." Her ears twitched, but she didn't answer right away. Instead, she picked up a bowl of steaming liquid and shoved it toward him. "Drink. Your body is still weak." Ethan hesitated, but his body was desperate for warmth. He took the bowl and sipped. The liquid was thick and slightly bitter, but it sent heat through his frozen limbs. She watched him closely, her expression unreadable. "You shouldn't be here," she muttered after a while. Ethan wiped his mouth. "Believe me, I didn't plan on crashing on your frozen planet." She narrowed her eyes. "Then leave. If my people find you, they'll kill you." Ethan stiffened. "Wait, what?" She bared her sharp teeth. "Humans are not welcome here. If they find you, they won't ask questions. They'll hunt you down and tear you apart." A cold chill ran down Ethan's spine. He had thought the storm was his biggest problem. Now, it was clear that the real danger was just beginning. The danger outside. A sudden howl echoed through the night. A deep, chilling sound that made Ethan's blood run cold. The alien woman's expression hardened. She stood up, grabbed a long spear, and moved to the entrance of the bunker. Ethan forced himself up, ignoring the pain in his legs. What was that? She didn't turn around. A patrol. They're close. His heart pounded. "Your people?" She nodded. "Yes. If they find you, you die. If they find me helping you, I die too." Ethan clenched his fists. He had survived the crash, the storm, and the freezing cold. Now he had to survive an alien species that wanted him dead. He looked at her. "Why are you helping me then?" For the first time, she hesitated. Her blue eyes flickered with something unreadable. Regret. Uncertainty. Then she shook her head. "Because I was weak, just like you." Ethan frowned. "What does that mean?" She didn't answer. Instead, she turned toward the entrance. The howling was getting louder. "You have until morning," she said coldly. "After that, you're on your own." Ethan swallowed hard. He didn't have a choice. If he wanted to live, he had to escape before sunrise. But something told him she wasn't going to let him die so easily. A dangerous offer. Ethan Graves lay still, his body warming under thick alien furs, but his mind was racing. He had survived the storm, but now he faced something even worse, an alien species that wanted him dead. His rescuer, the tall, fur-covered alien woman, sat by the fire, sharpening a blade that looked as ancient as the bunker they were in. Her glowing blue eyes flickered toward him every so often, as if deciding whether she had made a mistake by saving him. She had warned him. Her people would kill them if they found him here. He had until morning to figure out his next move. Outside, the howls of the patrol echoed through the frozen night, reminding him just how little time he had. Ethan took a deep breath and sat up, ignoring the soreness in his limbs. "You never told me your name." The alien woman paused for a moment, then muttered, "Soraka." He nodded. "Thanks for saving me, Soraka." She let out a short, bitter laugh. "Don't thank me, human. I should have left you to die." Ethan raised an eyebrow. "Then why didn't you?" Soraka didn't answer right away. Instead, she set down her blade and reached for a strange metallic device hanging from her belt. She pressed a button, and a holographic map flickered to life, glowing dimly in the firelight. She pointed to a section on the map, an area far from where they were now. "If you want to live, you need to get here before dawn." Ethan studied the map. It showed an old crash site, one she probably expected him to recognize. He frowned. "That's not from my ship." Soraka's expression darkened. "It isn't. It's from a human ship that crashed here long ago. If you're lucky, there might still be a working distress beacon inside." Ethan's heart pounded. Other humans crashed here before. Soraka let out a deep breath, avoiding his gaze. Yes, but they didn't make it. A chill that had nothing to do with the cold ran down Ethan's spine. What happened to them? Soraka was silent for a long time. Then she simply said, "They didn't leave." The weight of the past. Ethan clenched his fists. If a distress beacon still worked, it might be his only hope of getting off this frozen hellscape. But Soraka's reaction worried him. What had happened to the previous humans who crashed here? Were they killed? Captured? Worse? Ethan exhaled, trying to shake off the fear crawling up his spine. "If the beacon is still there, why haven't you used it?" he asked. Soraka's eyes narrowed. "Because it's in forbidden territory. My people guard that place. If they find you there, you'll die before you can even send a signal." Ethan processed that for a moment. "And yet you're telling me to go there." Soraka looked at him for a long time. "You have no other choice, human. You can't stay here. And She hesitated, her jaw clenching. "I can't help you if they find you here." Ethan frowned. "Why? You already saved me. If they find me here, can't you just say you?" "No." Soraka's voice was sharp. "They won't listen. If they find out I helped a human, they'll kill me too." Ethan's stomach twisted. She had risked her life just by letting him in. For the first time since he crashed, he saw the truth in her expression. She wasn't just trying to get rid of him. She was scared. Not for herself, for both of them. Ethan ran a hand through his hair, feeling the weight of his situation. He had one night to make it to the old human crash site, find the distress beacon, and signal for help, all while avoiding Soraka's people, who would kill him on sight. It was a suicide mission. But it was his only chance, a desperate escape plan. Ethan stood up, rolling his stiff shoulders. "All right. If I go, how do I avoid your people?" Sarika studied him carefully, then grabbed something from a storage crate, a heavy fur cloak made from the same thick material that covered her own body. She tossed it at him. "Wear this. It will hide your scent from the trackers." Ethan caught it and frowned. "Trackers?" Sarika sighed. "My people don't just hunt with their eyes. They can smell the difference between us and outsiders. If you don't cover your human stench, they'll find you before you take 10 steps. Ethan scowled. "Well, that's comforting." Sarika ignored his sarcasm. She turned and grabbed a small knife from her belt, handing it to him. Ethan took it, weighing it in his hand. Not exactly the best weapon. She bared her sharp teeth in something close to a smirk. "It's not for fighting. If they catch you, you won't win. But if you get caught in the ice, you might need to cut yourself free." Ethan's stomach tightened. This was really happening. He took a deep breath. "All right. I'll go." Sarika stepped forward suddenly, her towering figure casting a shadow over him. "Listen carefully, human. The path is dangerous. The cold will try to kill you. My people will try to kill you. If you make too much noise, the ice will collapse and kill you." Ethan gave her a dry smile. "Wow. Thanks for the encouragement." Sarika rolled her eyes. "If I wanted you dead, I wouldn't have wasted my furs on you." Ethan's smirk faded. She was risking a lot to help him. For a moment, he almost asked why she was doing this. But something told him he wouldn't like the answer. Instead, he pulled the heavy fur cloak over his shoulders, tightened the straps of his boots, and gripped the knife. It was time to go. The hunt begins. Ethan stood at the bunker entrance, gripping the small knife Sarika had given him. The weight of the thick fur cloak on his shoulders was both comforting and suffocating. Outside, the frozen wind howled like a living creature, carrying with it the distant sounds of something far worse. Alien hunters. Sarika stood beside him, her expression unreadable. "Move quickly, stay low, and for the love of the stars, don't breathe too loud." Ethan raised an eyebrow. "Don't breathe too loud." Sarika's ears twitched. "I'm serious, human. My people have keen senses. If they catch even a whisper of your breath, you're dead before you can blink." Ethan exhaled slowly, the weight of her words sinking in. "Great, just another way I can die tonight." Sarika let out a deep sigh and reached into a small pack at her waist. She pulled out a small vial filled with dark blue liquid. "Drink this." Ethan eyed the vial suspiciously. "What is it?" Sarika didn't answer immediately. Instead, she stared at him for a long moment before finally saying, "Something that might save your life." That wasn't exactly the answer he wanted, but he didn't have time to argue. He uncorked the vial and took a cautious sip. The moment the liquid touched his tongue, a wave of icy cold shot through his body, making him shudder. What the hell? Before he could finish, his body stopped shivering. The unbearable cold that had been biting at his skin just moments ago vanished. Sarika smirked. "You humans are fragile. That should help you survive out there a little longer." Ethan swallowed the rest of the liquid and set the empty vial aside. "What is it, exactly?" "A local herb mixture. Numbs your nerves, slows your body's heat loss." She shrugged. "It won't make you immune to the cold, but it'll give you a few extra hours before frostbite sets in." Ethan flexed his fingers, amazed that they no longer felt stiff and frozen. "All right," he said, adjusting the fur cloak. "Let's do this." Slipping through the ice, Sarika led the way out of the bunker, her movements silent and precise. Ethan followed, keeping his head low, his breath slow. The cold wind cut across the landscape, but thanks to the potion, he barely felt it. The frozen ground beneath their feet creaked with every step. The ice was unstable, filled with hidden cracks and crevices that could swallow a person whole if they weren't careful. Sarika moved with confidence, her sharp eyes scanning the horizon. "Stay close," she whispered. Ethan nodded, gripping the knife at his belt just in case. The two of them moved across the frozen wasteland, passing through jagged ice formations that rose like teeth from the ground. The only light came from the twin moons overhead, casting a pale blue glow over the snow-covered world. Then, a low, distant sound broke the silence. A howl. Ethan froze in place. Sarika whipped around, her ears perking up. Her blue eyes locked onto his. "They're close." Another howl followed, this one much closer. Sarika let out a sharp breath. "Damn it. They caught your scent after all." Ethan's heart pounded. "But you said the fur would hide my scent." Sarika's tail flicked behind her in frustration. "It did. But the storm shifted. The wind must have carried a trace of you." Ethan clenched his fists. "So what now?" Sarika's eyes narrowed. "We run." The chase. Sarika grabbed Ethan's arm and yanked him forward, forcing him into a sprint. The ice beneath them was slick, and Ethan struggled to keep up as Sarika moved with inhuman speed. Behind them, the howls grew louder. Then, Ethan heard it, a sharp crackling sound in the distance. Footsteps. Multiple footsteps. They weren't alone anymore. Sarika let out a frustrated growl. "They're closing in too fast. We won't make it to the crash site in time." Ethan's breath came in short bursts. His lungs burned from the cold air, but he forced himself to focus. "Then what do we do?" he asked. Sarika didn't hesitate. She suddenly changed direction, veering toward a jagged ice ridge. "We go down." Ethan barely had time to react before she grabbed him and yanked him forward, right off the edge of a frozen cliff. For a moment, the world tilted. The ground disappeared beneath his feet, and he was falling, plunging into darkness. Then, impact. Ethan hit something soft, a deep snowbank that cushioned his fall. He gasped for air, blinking against the snowflakes swirling around him. Sarika landed next to him, already on her feet, scanning the area. "Get up. We don't have time." Ethan pushed himself up, his limbs aching from the fall. "Where the hell are we?" Sarika pointed to a dark, jagged entrance ahead. "An old ice tunnel. It leads under the surface. If we're lucky, we can lose them inside." Ethan stared at the entrance, his gut twisting with unease. The tunnel looked unnatural, like something had carved it long ago. "And if we're unlucky?" he asked. Sarika's ears twitched. "Then we'll wish the hunters found us instead." The darkness below. They ran toward the tunnel just as the first of the hunters appeared at the top of the cliff. Ethan barely got a glimpse. Tall figures with glowing eyes and weapons in hand. Then, the alien hunters let out a guttural roar and started descending. Ethan and Sarika dove into the tunnel, swallowed by the shadows. Inside, the air was thick and heavy. Ice walls surrounded them, but there was something else, something wrong. The deeper they went, the more Ethan felt a strange sensation pressing against his mind. Like they weren't alone. Sarika stiffened beside him. "Stay quiet." Ethan swallowed hard and nodded. Somewhere deep inside the tunnel, something shifted. Something big. Sarika's grip tightened on her spear. "Whatever you do, human, don't make a sound." Ethan clenched his jaw, his heart pounding. Outside, the hunters were searching for them. Inside, something else was waiting. And for the first time since he crashed, Ethan wasn't sure which was worse. Escaping the ice hunters. The air inside the ice tunnel was thick and suffocating, filled with an unnatural stillness. Ethan pressed his back against the frozen wall, forcing himself to breathe slow and quiet. His body was tense, every nerve on edge. Beside him, Sarika held her spear in a tight grip, her fur bristling. Her glowing blue eyes flicked back and forth, scanning the dark passage ahead. Above them, the muffled howls of the hunters echoed from the surface. They were searching, sniffing, trying to track his scent. But inside this tunnel, there was something else. something watching them. Ethan swallowed hard. The deeper they went, the heavier the air became. It felt like the walls themselves were pressing in, whispering silent warnings. "Keep moving," Soraka whispered. "And do not, under any circumstances, make a sound." Ethan nodded, gripping the small knife at his belt. They stepped forward, their boots crunching softly against the ice. Every footstep felt too loud, too dangerous. Then the silence broke. A deep guttural growl echoed through the tunnel. Ethan froze. It didn't come from behind them. It came from ahead. Soraka cursed under her breath, her ears twitching. She lowered herself slightly, gripping her spear tighter. Ethan's heart pounded. He could barely see in the darkness, but he knew they weren't alone. The thing in the dark. The growl turned into a low, grating breath, like something massive inhaling the cold air. Ethan's blood ran cold. The sound was too deep, too heavy to be from the alien hunters above. This was something else. Soraka motioned for him to move, stepping lightly on the icy floor. Ethan followed, his every movement slow and deliberate. Then, a shadow moved. A shape shifted in the darkness, tall and twisted. It was pressed against the far wall of the tunnel, hidden among the jagged ice formations. Ethan could barely make out its outline, but he could feel its presence, looming and wrong. Soraka's breathing hitched. Ethan saw her eyes widen. Fear, that scared him more than anything else. The thing in the dark exhaled, releasing a cloud of freezing mist into the air. Ethan's entire body locked up. It wasn't attacking. It was waiting, watching, testing them. Soraka lifted a single finger, signaling don't move. Ethan obeyed. Seconds stretched into eternity. Then, a sound from above. A loud crack as one of the hunters landed on the tunnel entrance. The thing in the dark snapped its head upward. Ethan saw his chance. He grabbed Soraka's arm and bolted. The chase underground. The moment they moved, the creature let out an ear-piercing shriek. The ice tunnel shook. Ethan and Soraka sprinted forward, racing deeper into the unknown. Behind them, the creature exploded from its hiding place, its massive claws scraping against the ice walls. Ethan stole a glance back, and his stomach twisted in horror. The thing was twice the size of Soraka, its body warped and unnatural. Its skin was blackened with frost, jagged and broken, like it had been frozen alive for centuries but refused to die. And its eyes, empty, hollow voids, were locked onto them. Soraka snarled. "Run faster, human." They tore through the tunnel, their feet barely touching the ground. The beast behind them moved like a nightmare, its limbs twisting in unnatural ways as it chased them. Then, another sound. The hunters above had heard the shriek. They were coming, trapped between two evils. Ethan's lungs burned, his legs screamed for rest, but he couldn't stop. The tunnel twisted sharply, leading into a vast underground cavern. Soraka skidded to a halt, grabbing Ethan's arm. "Wait!" He turned and nearly stumbled off a ledge. Below them, a massive underground river of freezing black water raged, cutting through the ice. Soraka's ears twitched. "Damn it! We can't go back. We can't go forward." Ethan's heart pounded. What now? Behind them, the creature was closing in. Above them, the hunters were breaking through the ice, dropping into the cavern. Soraka let out a slow, controlled breath. Then she did something that made Ethan's stomach drop. She turned to face the creature. Ethan's eyes widened. "What are you doing?" Soraka gripped her spear. "Buying us time." Ethan realized she was going to fight it. He clenched his fists. "You'll get yourself killed." Soraka didn't look at him. "Then jump, human." Ethan's breath hitched. "What?" Soraka's tail flicked behind her. "Into the river. It's the only way out." Ethan looked at the freezing, raging water below. He'd never survive that. Soraka let out a sharp breath. "Trust me." Then she lunged at the creature. Ethan had no choice. He jumped. The plunge. The second Ethan hit the water, his entire body went numb. The freezing cold tore through him like knives, robbing him of breath. He tumbled beneath the surface, the current dragging him into the depths. For a moment, he thought, "This is it." Then, a hand grabbed his collar. "Sareka." She dragged him upward, gasping for breath. "Swim, human." Ethan kicked hard, fighting the current. His body was stiff, his muscles barely responding, but he forced himself forward. Above them, the creature let out a deafening screech as it battled the hunters. The last thing Ethan saw before the river pulled them away was the hunters retreating. Not because of him, not because of Sareka, but because of the thing in the dark. And in that moment, Ethan realized, whatever that thing was, it was worse than both of them. The unknown ahead. The river carried them far away, slamming them against icy rocks before finally spitting them out onto a frozen shoreline. Ethan collapsed onto the ground, coughing up water, his entire body shaking. Sareka rolled onto her back, breathing hard. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Then, Ethan let out a weak laugh. That was insane. Sareka groaned. "Welcome to my world, human." Ethan sat up, staring into the darkness ahead. "Where are we now?" Sareka turned her head, her expression unreadable. "Closer to the crash site, but we're not safe yet." Ethan sighed, running a hand through his wet hair. Of course they weren't, because whatever that thing was back there, it wasn't done with them yet. The forbidden ruins. Ethan lay on the frozen ground, gasping for breath, his body aching from the brutal journey through the freezing underground river. His skin was ice cold, his limbs barely responding. Beside him, Sareka was equally exhausted, her fur soaked, her body trembling from the sudden drop in temperature. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The only sound was the distant roar of the river, still surging behind them. Then, Ethan forced himself up onto his elbows, squinting into the dark, cavernous space ahead. "Where are we?" he muttered through chattering teeth. Sareka exhaled, shaking the water from her fur. "Somewhere we weren't supposed to be." Ethan frowned. "And that means what, exactly?" Sareka's ears twitched as she slowly stood, her sharp blue eyes scanning the vast area around them. "Look around, human. Does this look natural to you?" Ethan forced himself to focus. They were in a massive underground chamber, much larger than the tunnel they had escaped through. The air was thick, strangely warm, and carried an odd scent, something metallic and ancient. The walls, unlike the jagged ice tunnels, were smooth and unnatural, covered in strange symbols that glowed faintly in the dim light. Something about the place felt wrong. Ethan's gut twisted. "This isn't just a cave, is it?" Sareka shook her head. "No, it's a ruin. An old one. And we shouldn't be here." Whispers from the past. Ethan pushed himself up, still unsteady on his feet. Who built this place? Sareka hesitated. Then she ran a hand along the smooth wall, tracing the glowing alien symbols with her fingers. "A race older than mine," she said quietly. "The first ones. The ones who ruled this planet before my people existed." Ethan blinked. "Wait, you mean an entirely different species lived here before you?" Sareka nodded, her expression serious. "We call them the Elders. No one knows exactly what happened to them, but they vanished long before my kind arrived." Ethan glanced around, taking in the eerie silence of the ruins. "So your people just moved in after them?" Sareka let out a dry laugh. "No, human. We fear this place. We stay far away from the ruins." Ethan frowned. "Why?" Sareka's ears flattened, and for the first time, she looked genuinely uneasy. "Because the Elders didn't just vanish." Ethan's blood ran cold. "Then what happened?" Sareka's eyes darkened. "Something took them." A shiver crawled down Ethan's spine. "Something like that thing we saw back in the tunnel." Sareka exhaled slowly. Maybe worse." Ethan swallowed hard, scanning the glowing symbols on the walls. Something about them felt familiar. Then he saw it. A symbol that stood out from the rest. A human marking. His stomach twisted. "Siraka, look at this." She turned and frowned at the scratched-in markings on the metal wall. Unlike the glowing elder symbols, these marks were rough, desperate, and in between them, Ethan could make out something terrifying. English letters. Someone, another human, had been here before, and they had left a message. The message in the dark. Ethan stepped closer, his breath catching as he traced the crude carvings. Not alone. They took us. Don't go deeper. A chill worse than the ice storm outside ran through Ethan's bones. Siraka's fur bristled. Your kind made it here before. Ethan shook his head slowly. I don't know, but if this message is real. He turned to face her, his voice grim. Then none of them ever made it out. Siraka clenched her jaw. We need to leave. Now. Ethan agreed, but as he turned back toward the way they had come, his stomach dropped. The entrance was gone. The tunnel they had escaped through collapsed. Ethan's heart pounded. Siraka. She had already seen it. Something doesn't want us to leave. The air shifted. The glowing symbols along the walls flickered, as if responding to something unseen. And then, the whispers began. Faint at first, then growing. Ethan spun around, scanning the darkness. Voices, dozens of them, maybe more. They spoke in a language he didn't understand, but the meaning crawled into his brain, making his head ache. You don't belong here. Ethan grabbed Siraka's arm. Tell me you hear that. Siraka's fur was fully raised now. I hear it. Her grip tightened on her spear. Run. Ethan didn't need to be told twice. The awakening. They ran through the ruins, their footsteps echoing through the empty corridors. The further they went, the more the walls glowed brighter, pulsing like a heartbeat. The whispers grew louder, angrier. Then, the ground rumbled. Ethan stumbled as a low, mechanical groan shook the entire chamber. Something was waking up. Siraka snarled, pulling him forward. Faster. A deafening boom echoed behind them as the floor split apart, revealing something massive buried beneath. Ethan turned and felt pure terror. Rising from the broken floor was a towering machine, covered in ice and alien script. But the worst part, it was moving. A massive metallic arm shifted, ancient gears grinding as the thing turned toward them. And in the center of its massive chest, a single red light flickered to life. A voice, cold, robotic, and ancient, spoke. Unauthorized life forms detected. Siraka gritted her teeth. Oh, that's bad. Ethan barely had time to process what was happening before the machine raised one enormous arm. And then, it attacked. The betrayal. The ancient machine roared to life, its deep metallic voice echoing through the frozen ruins. The red light in its chest pulsed like a heartbeat, scanning the intruders who had dared to enter its domain. Unauthorized life forms detected. The walls trembled. The symbols etched into the metallic surface flashed brighter, casting eerie, shifting shadows across the cavern. Ethan barely had time to react before the machine moved. With a thunderous clank, it raised one of its massive arms, a limb composed of rotating gears, sharp edges, and claw-like appendages. It swung, fast, impossibly fast for something so ancient. Move-y. Siraka yelled, grabbing Ethan and shoving him aside just as the colossal arm smashed into the ground where he had been standing. The impact shattered the icy floor, sending chunks of debris flying. Ethan hit the ground hard, rolling to avoid the falling ice. His lungs burned, his body screaming for rest. But there was no time. Siraka snarled, gripping her spear and positioning herself between Ethan and the machine. Her blue eyes burned with fury. It's a guardian, she growled. It was built to protect these ruins. Ethan pushed himself up, his heart pounding. Protect them from what? Siraka's expression darkened. From us. The guardian turned its head toward her, its voice emotionless yet chilling. Native species detected. You are in violation of the Treaty of Dominion. Soraka's fur bristled. What treaty? The machine's voice deepened. This planet was not yours to take. Ethan's stomach twisted. Not yours to take. What did that mean? But before he could think, the Guardian attacked again. Running out of time, Ethan and Soraka dodged the next attack, barely escaping as the Guardian's claw slammed into the ruins. A section of the wall crumbled, revealing another chamber beyond. An escape route. Soraka saw it first. There, she shouted. We can lose it in the deeper tunnels. Ethan didn't hesitate. He bolted for the opening, Soraka right beside him. The Guardian roared, its red core glowing brighter as it recalculated its attack. Then, it did something terrifying. It opened its chest. Inside was a swirling energy core, crackling with an unfathomable power. The ruins trembled. Ethan felt the hairs on his arms rise as the temperature plummeted. His breath turned to frost. Soraka. But before he could finish, the Guardian unleashed its power. A blast of pure energy exploded from its core, surging through the cavern like a tidal wave. The walls froze instantly, covered in thick ice. The air turned so cold that Ethan's skin burned. Soraka barely managed to pull him through the tunnel opening before the wave could hit them. Behind them, the Guardian's red light flickered. It would follow soon. They had to move. Fast. The hidden chamber. They ran through the tunnel, deeper into the ruins. The air here was different, still cold but strangely charged. The walls pulsed faintly, as if the very structure of the ruin was alive. Soraka slowed, her ears twitching. Something isn't right. Ethan noticed it too. The ruins weren't abandoned. Ahead, a large metallic door stood half open, its surface covered in human writing. Ethan's breath caught in his throat. He stepped closer, running his fingers over the faded letters. Mission log, USC Artemis. His heart stopped. Soraka frowned. What is it? Ethan swallowed hard. The Artemis. It was a human exploration ship, lost nearly 20 years ago. Soraka's tail flicked. Then why is its name here? Before Ethan could answer, the metallic door groaned and slid open further, on its own. A deep hiss echoed from within. And then, a voice. Finally. Took you long enough. Ethan's blood froze. Inside the chamber stood a man, tall, broad-shouldered, dressed in what remained of a tattered USC uniform. His face was gaunt, his eyes too bright, as if he had been awake for far too long. Ethan stepped forward cautiously. Who are you? The man smirked. Captain Jace Holloway. I was the first human to land on this planet. Soraka stiffened. That's not possible. Jace chuckled. You'd be surprised what's possible down here. Ethan's heart hammered. Something about this wasn't right. He should be dead. You were on the Artemis, Ethan said carefully. That ship disappeared 2 decades ago. Jace's smile didn't fade. Disappeared? No, kid. We were taken. Ethan exchanged a glance with Soraka. Taken? By who? Jace's expression darkened. By the ones who built this place. The ruins hummed around them, as if responding to his words. Ethan's stomach twisted. The elders? Jace let out a slow breath. Close. Their machines. The ones they left behind. Ethan felt a cold chill creep up his spine. You mean, like that Guardian? Jace's grin faded. Oh, that's nothing. Just a watchdog. He stepped closer. The real problem. They're waking up. Soraka tensed. Who's waking up? Jace's 2 bright eyes flickered with something unreadable. The ones who put us here. The ones who don't like trespassers. Ethan's breath caught. And what happened to the rest of your crew? Jace smiled. A cold, hollow smile. Oh, they're still here. Then, before either Ethan or Soraka could react, Jace moved. Faster than a man should be able to move. He grabbed Ethan's wrist, his grip inhumanly strong. Ethan gasped. "What?" Jace leaned in and whispered something that sent pure terror through Ethan's veins. "You should never have come here." Soraka reacted instantly. She lunged, but it was too late. Jace twisted Ethan's arm, and in one smooth motion, tore the distress beacon from his belt. Ethan's stomach dropped. Jace stepped back, holding the only device that could call for help. He smirked. "Thanks for bringing this to me. I've been waiting a long time for another human to show up." Soraka snarled, stepping between them. "Give it back." Jace tilted his head. "Now why would I do that?" The ruins groaned. The air shifted. And then, the lights flickered to red. Jace grinned. "They know you're here." Ethan's heart pounded. And from the darkness beyond the chamber, something stirred. Something old. Something hungry. The final stand. Ethan's heart pounded. The air inside the ruins grew heavier, thick with a sense of something ancient stirring beneath the surface. The walls pulsed with a deep, rhythmic energy, responding to the trespassers in their midst. Jace Holloway stood before him, gripping the distress beacon like a trophy. His eyes, too bright, too knowing, gleamed in the dim red light. "They know you're here," he repeated, his voice calm, almost amused. Soraka snarled, her claws flexing, muscles tense. "Who is they?" Jace exhaled slowly, turning the beacon over in his hand. "The architects." Ethan frowned. "The who?" Jace tilted his head, his expression eerily detached. "The ones who built this world. The ones who never left." The walls groaned, deep and low. And then, the darkness moved. A low hum filled the chamber. The glowing symbols along the walls flashed faster, reacting to something unseen. The temperature dropped instantly, frost creeping along the metal. Soraka's ears twitched, her breathing steady but alert. "Something's coming." Jace smirked, completely unbothered. "Something's already here." Ethan swallowed hard. "Then maybe we should leave." Jace let out a soft chuckle. "Leave? Oh, kid." He lifted his left sleeve, revealing something embedded in his skin. A metallic implant that pulsed in sync with the ruins. "I'm already home." The awakening. A sound, deep, mechanical, ancient, echoed through the chamber. It wasn't a roar. It wasn't a growl. It was a voice. Low, impossible, spoken inside their heads. "You have violated the accord." Ethan froze. The voice wasn't Jace. It wasn't Soraka's. It was everywhere. Jace's smirk widened. There they are. The far wall shuddered, sections of metal splitting apart like a puzzle shifting into place. Something enormous began to emerge, limbs made of woven metal and organic material, pulsing veins of energy running through its core. A construct, but not just any machine. It was alive. Soraka's breath hitched. "That's not a guardian." Jace spread his arms. "Nope. This is one of the real ones. The architects' enforcers." Ethan's pulse raced. The construct unfolded itself, its massive form towering over them. It had no face, only a smooth, reflective surface, shifting with flickers of light. Then, it turned toward Jace. "Subject 017. You are in violation of protocol." Ethan's stomach dropped. "Subject 017. Jace sighed, running a hand through his hair. "They really don't forget, do they?" Soraka stepped forward, spear raised. "What did you do?" Jace shrugged. "Broke the rules." He turned to Ethan. "Your people came here first, years ago. The Artemis didn't crash. We were brought here. And these things." He gestured toward the towering enforcer, its glowing veins pulsing with power. "They didn't like that." Ethan gritted his teeth. "Then why are you still alive?" Jace chuckled. "Because I was useful to them. For a while." The enforcer suddenly lifted an arm, its fingers splitting apart into multiple razor-sharp appendages. Containment protocol initiated. Jace's smirk vanished. Ah, guess they're done with me. The enforcer lunged. The betrayal revealed. Ethan barely had time to react. Jace dodged at the last second, rolling out of the way as the enforcer's arm smashed into the ground, sending a wave of energy rippling through the ruins. Serica leaped forward, grabbing Ethan and pulling him back. We need to leave. Now. Jace, still gripping the distress beacon, gave them a mocking salute. You go on ahead, kids. I've got some unfinished business. Ethan clenched his fists. Give me the beacon, Holloway. Jace grinned. What, this old thing? He spun it in his hand. Why? So you can call for help. Trust me, no one's coming. Ethan stepped forward, rage boiling in his chest. You don't get to decide that. Jace's smile faded. Oh, but I do, kid. His voice dropped. You think you're the first human to try escaping this place. Ethan's blood ran cold. What? Jace chuckled darkly. The ones before you. They didn't make it. Because the moment they sent out a distress signal. Serica's ears flattened. Something else found them first. Jace snapped his fingers. Bingo. Ethan's stomach twisted. You mean? Jace nodded. If you send a signal, the enforcers won't be the only ones coming. The others will come too. Ethan's breath hitched. The ones who took the elders. Jace's eyes gleamed. They never left, kid. They're just waiting. The enforcer suddenly roared, its voice turning mechanical and distorted. Eradicate the anomaly. Jace smirked. Guess that means me. Then, before anyone could react, he threw the beacon to Ethan. Good luck, Graves. And with that, he turned and ran. The enforcer pursued instantly, its massive form crushing everything in its path. Ethan barely caught the beacon, gripping it tight. Serica grabbed his shoulder. We have to go. Now. Ethan nodded, hitting the beacon's activation switch. A high-pitched signal blasted into the air, vibrating through the ruins. And then, everything went silent. The red lights flickered. The air grew still. Serica tightened her grip on her spear. What did you just do? Ethan exhaled. We called for help. And from the depths of space, something answered. A low guttural hum filled the cavern, deeper than anything before. Ethan's heart pounded. Something was coming. Something worse than the enforcers. And for the first time since he crashed, Ethan wasn't sure if he had just saved them or doomed them all.